All right, everybody, good evening. Hope you guys are still doing well on this Thursday, and we've got some Seattle Seahawks news. Not huge news, nothing that's going to drastically change the direction of this organization, but it is news nevertheless, and it's roster news. So, therefore, definitely worth spending a video on. This is something that every NFL team does when their season ends. So, most teams have already done this as of the end of the regular season. The teams that made the playoffs and lost in the playoffs, they did this after their losses. So, this week, the only two teams left to do this were the Seahawks and Patriots. The Seahawks have now done it. They have handed out futures contracts to a bunch of players, in our case, 15 players. So, therefore, let's go through the list and let's talk about what a futures contract is, because I know that's not something that comes up all that often. But we have done this video before, and we know what futures contracts are. All right, guys, hold up, because my friends at Sleeper are introducing some new features, and I want to tell you guys about them before we go any further. Sleeper is launching Team Picks, a new prediction market product. So now, on top of all the over-unders you can pick over on their Sleeper app, you can now pick on games. For instance, if you take a look to my left on the screen right now, you can see you can make a pick on the Super Bowl. They also have some bonuses available on over-unders for players. So there's now way more stuff you can get up to over on Sleeper. Get on over there before the Super Bowl, and don't forget to use the promo code SBN for a 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit. And don't forget to utilize the free $20 entry that you get just for making an account. So the Super Bowl is almost here. Make sure you get on Sleeper and have some fun with sports. All right, so a futures contract, Greg Bell does a pretty good job of explaining it here in this tweet. A 1-year deal at minimum salary, so usually it's a little bit less than $1 million. And basically what it does is that it earmarks you to be part of the 90-man roster during the offseason. Because during the offseason, NFL teams have a lot more than 53 players. And a lot of those players do not make the 53 man for obvious reasons. Um, there are guys out there who pretty much know when they're on the 90 man that they have almost no chance of making the 53 man. They're just trying to make a good impression so that maybe they get called on later in the year if players get hurt. So what this does, what a futures contract is it's basically just like letting them know, we want you guys at training camp, and you're not guaranteed anything except the opportunity to prove you belong. So that's basically all a futures contract is. And as you can see, the players that we gave these futures contracts to were all on the practice squad. So basically, it's a way to keep your practice squad around during the off season and assuring that you're able to get those guys back in the I guess it would start in what, May or June? Well, whenever you start your training camp, I think rookie camp is in actually training camp itself might not start until July, depends on the year. But either way, you just kind of want to keep your practice squad together. So it's just a way to make sure that you have a lot of bodies when training camp starts, because right now the team has, what, 53 players, and a bunch of them are not under contract. So you're going to lose players in the offseason. You might lose Job. You might lose Jake Bobo. You might lose Woolen. You might lose pretty much anybody that's not under contract. You're going to release players. You're going to sign players. You're going to draft players. But whatever you do, you're definitely not going to get enough guys to fill a 90-man roster. So therefore, you hand out the futures contracts to make sure you can fill the roster up in the when training camp comes around without you having to go out and sign a ton of players. So let's take a look real quick. Again, most of these players, well, I think actually literally all of them were on the practice squad when the season ended, and most of them never played for the Seahawks this year. And again, I want to stress it's very unlikely that any of them actually are impactful players for the team. However, one thing that is worth noting is that Ty Okada, I think it was Ty Okada, was previously a player we gave a futures contract to. Now he's a key reserve, and he may even be a starter going forward, so it's not impossible. Okay, so the list is, we've got Cam Akers. He's one of the guys on this list that actually did play for the Seahawks a little bit this year. Tyrone Broden, he's fun because he is really big and really fast. He just kind of struggles with the basic nuance of playing wide receiver. Logan Brown, a left tackle who actually almost got to play for us at the end of the year because Charles Cross and Amari Kite and Josh Jones were all getting beat up at the end. Wide receiver Montori Foster, cornerback Tyler Hall, safety Maxon Hook, running back Velez Jones Jr. That's another guy who actually did play for us a little bit. He even played in a playoff game, actually. Offensively, he actually got on the field, so that's notable, I suppose. Center Federico Maranguez. A linebacker, Chris Paul Jr., linebacker Jamie Sheriff, who I don't know if we're considering him an edge rusher or a linebacker at this point. It feels like he keeps going back and forth. Nose tackle, J.R. Singleton. Nose tackle, Bubba Thomas. Linebacker, Jamarcus Weston. Wide receiver, Ricky White III. And running back, Jacardia Wright. So I believe that's literally just our whole practice squad getting offered futures deals. But regardless, these are the guys that are probably going to be there for us in July, in August, in June. So of these guys, who are the ones that are most likely to actually be impactful for the Seahawks at some point? I think these last two guys, Ricky White III and Jacardia Wright, are interesting because Ricky White is a very good special teamer. He was like a blocked punt aficionado when he was in college. I think he was UNLV. So that's somebody who, if he can ever justify a spot on the roster, probably becomes one of your top special teamers. And Jacardia Wright actually looked pretty good in the preseason last year. And Damian Martinez is gone, right? So with all the upheaval the Seahawks are going to have from this year to next year at running back, Jacardia Wright actually has a little bit of a chance here. All right, so those guys would stand out to me. Obviously, anybody who wants to step forward and prove that they belong on an NFL field, great. I mean, I'd love if Tyrone Broden would learn how to play the position because he is a physical specimen. Unlikely. And yeah, those are your futures contracts. So not a ton to say, admittedly. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that any of these guys have some tremendously strong chance of being important players for the 2026 Seahawks, but those are your futures contracts. Let me know what you guys think, if you think anything. And see you guys. I'll be on Twitch later, but see you guys tomorrow on YouTube. Go Hawks. And more stuff coming soon.